anything. So I'll hand it over to you, Anthony.
So Mary, I think you're going to have to make me into a host or a co-host so that I can share my screen as well. Is that?
Okay. All right. Oh no, I've got it for sharing, so I can make you the host. Okay, well, let's do that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Excellent. Let's see if it'll work off the iPad as it should. I wish we started the recording after this already was up and running. Can you see my screen at the moment?
No.
Anybody? Can't see my screen? No?
No.
Okay. Hopefully you can edit out this first part of it. Okay. Now hopefully you are seeing the screen. Yep, brilliant. And if I shift it over to this, are you still seeing the screen? Awesome.
Sure.
Okay.
Good.
Okie dokie. So, present on this device. Great.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to go back to the very beginning now. Brief preview of it. So with a good car company, our entire mandate is to decarbonize transport and to drive change by enabling communities to come together, have larger uptake of electric vehicles, and use that as a discussion piece and a policy lever for being able to work with networks and planners, decision makers to have more EV-friendly policies in place. So we were looking over the ditch and we saw that they have a lot more EVs per capita than we do. And we do suffer from really limited options, from costly options, a real lack of clear information and a lot of misinformation, particularly around political campaigns. So what we have done is we've looked to other territories and seen that there's a really simple way of getting affordable vehicles here, and that's to import vehicles from Japan and the UK. There's a bit of complexity to it. There's lots of points of friction along the way, but we really try and simplify that whole process so that for people on the other side of it, here in Australia, it's a very easy option to switch. And the main reason, as I was explaining before, is that in order to have that realized potential of electric vehicles, we really do need to have that critical mass so that we can start to coordinate and orchestrate those batteries on wheels to support the network and to have more renewables come into the grid. So I sit on the State Electric Vehicle Working Group here, and it's a great initiative. They want to have government fleets switch to electric so that in time there will be a second-hand market. So cool, but that's still another 4 to 5 years down the track. So we've started a second-hand market from scratch. We also have seen that there's benefits to doing things in a mass scale, in that we can negotiate fleet discounts. So on Australian supplied EVs like Hyundai's, we can get them in as well and offer those same level of fleet discount the government gets to individuals. And the most important thing is that we are creating communities of electric vehicle ambassadors. So it normalizes EVs. It's like the peer effect of seeing your neighbors with solar on their roof. That in turn has that slow spread of the idea, and it just makes it normal. And this is the reason why we're doing it, to have the electric vehicle support the network. There's more to it. We're really concerned about the end life of the battery. So the picture on the bottom left-hand side is us in Melbourne at a warehouse of a company called Electrify. So that big unit that's there, that's 72 kilowatt hours of Nissan Leaf modules for stationary storage. So after the life of the vehicles in the cars, they still have a decent amount, like 12 to 15 years of usable life for stationary storage. And you can see on that unit there, they've got microinverters and all the modules, so it balances it out regardless of the health of those individual modules. We also want to be able to switch out old batteries for new batteries, or for batteries that we've taken from vehicles with panel damage that are still structurally sound, put them into a car with degraded batteries and give it a new lease on life, and keeping all that embodied energy on the road for longer. And we really do need to provide this service, because realistically, the manufacturers aren't going to have that as one of their drivers, because they want to sell new cars. So for us, they're incredibly, like even the older cars, even the ones from 2012 that were sold here, are still, they've got all the mod cons that new cars are only just coming out with. I think a lot of the electric vehicles are very progressive in their design. So switching out a battery, giving it the extended range again, it's a no-brainer really. And off the top right-hand side, that is a vehicle being tested on a bidirectional charger. So all of the vehicles that come from Japan, even the old Nissan Leafs, already have the firmware and the hardware in place to be able to do bidirectional charging. And that's because of a mandate that they had for emergency preparedness. So all those vehicles can be used to respond. After Fukushima, there was a bunch of electric vehicles that went down, and they provided the power for emergency medical and whatnot. So we have a few pathways to get an EV. The community bulk buy. I think this conversation came about from the bulk buy that we were doing with Geelong Sustainability, and we can. I know that Phillip Island is much smaller, but we can piggyback on other bulk buys as well, and make that process for us streamlined, as we just have to divert it over to you guys. We also have vehicles that we've got a little pool of money that we're able to go and purchase vehicles and have them so that you can directly purchase them. For us, it's way better if you go through the bulk buy, because that means that we're not locking up our finance in that process. And you also get it cheaper that way, because we set a maximum price for purchasing the vehicle. That's required so that we can ensure that you get it at the auction. But if it comes in any cheaper than that, and it often does, then we're really transparent about that, and you get that money back to you. As I was saying, we also do the community fleet purchases, and we're now able to offer financing options through our partners. So we have Pepper Money, we've got an novated lease solutions provider, we've got a number of personal loans that you can also get as regular car loans through Brighton, through Plenty. And they're all finance providers that we feel are above board. It's money which is being used for good. They do things like funding solar projects and home energy efficiency projects, and they're as close as we can get to a nice, clean solution for the money as well. Community is at the heart of what we're doing, and really it's getting everybody out there to normalize electric vehicles as much as possible. And invariably, if you have an EV, you're going to have people coming up and talking to you, particularly when you're sitting there either charging the car or whatnot. So creating these communities and the peer effect and the ambassador programs is, I think, one of the best ways that we can accelerate EV uptake. There's a lot of motivational factors for people getting the vehicles. Action on climate change and reducing emissions is a big one, but then there's some of the comfort mod cons. So Rosie, who was one of our first customers, particularly being down here in Tasmania, loves the warm seats. They got the little heaters in them and the heated steering wheels.
I know Rosie.
Oh, you know Rosie? Yeah, awesome. yeah, they're a fantastic family. They're fast, zippy cars. So they are little rockets, little go-karts, basically. And they drive really smoothly. They don't have any gearing, and they have torque pretty much the whole way through the range of acceleration. That's where going back to a conventional vehicle just feels really clunky. It is kind of hard to go back. And these guys just said something really nice. So the trust that the community has in us is really pretty phenomenal. I mean, going through the bulk buy process, you're putting down a fairly sizable deposit, getting a second-hand vehicle that you've never seen that's in a different country. It's all insured when it comes over, but still it's going to be a few months before it arrives from people that you've never met. So it's really cool that people actually trust us to help them through this process. And it is a fairly sizable commitment to purchase a vehicle. I've never bought a car as expensive as an electric car. That being said, I saved a lot of money in my fuel costs and maintenance costs over this time. So that's one of the things as well, that once people start to understand, yes, it might be a higher upfront purchase price, but you save a lot of money as well. These are a couple of cars that we have in a car share scheme. So there's 30 apartments who are all sharing these two vehicles. One of them is an electric van, one of them is a 30 kilowatt hour van, and we put that onto the Car Next Door platform. And it's a simple way of being able to coordinate those scheduling of those vehicles. We also offer the later model Nissan Leaf in the 40 and 62 kilowatt hour variants. So you get about 240 kilometers range with the 40 kilowatt hour and 350. They say 400 plus, but I don't see that. So we try and derate it. And that way you've got realistic expectations of having the vehicle. If you drive super slow on a flat or downhill, you'll get a huge range. But that's one thing to look out for with electric cars in general, is just, sometimes there's a bit of hype around what they can actually do versus real world when you're driving uphill. Highway driving as well also decreases your range. So being familiar with your vehicle, you could really, I think is the key to not having range anxiety. It used to really get me when I was down to 20 kilometers range, and even though home was only a few kilometers away, it's still the initial phase of getting used to that. It's quite different, but then you go home and you can plug it into a 10 amp power cord or power plug and charge it, which is really phenomenal. When you think about charging infrastructure, there are millions of charging points all over the country. It's slower, but it's way better for the batteries. If you're only doing 50 to 100 kilometers a day, you can easily charge your car overnight on a regular power point. Little things just to make EVs a bit more practical, putting on, a tow hitch for a light box trailer or bikes, or, roof racks, things like that, just make them a little bit more functional. We also have the electric vans. So we've got the EMV 200 that comes in a 24 kilowatt hour variant and a 40 kilowatt hour variant. And we also have the Peugeot e-Expert, which is a 75 kilowatt hour van. So that one gets around 350 kilometer range, and it's a slightly larger, more commercial van. Hopefully that comes in a people mover. I should say in the models as well, we do also have the Hyundai Ioniq and Kona new vehicles with the fleet discount, and then your state-based subsidies as well, which is kind of cool. As far as fast chargers and chargers around Australia, this map is constantly changing. All the orange dots, are fast chargers, and then you've got the other various AC chargers around the place. Apparently you've got one right on the tip. It was out of commission for the last week, but it's just come on again this week. There is a Future Fuels grant, which has just gone in, and there'll be a lot more popping up around Greater Melbourne region, which is phenomenal. You'll be really well covered. Even in a low range vehicle, you should be able to travel most places. One thing I will say, if you've got a lower range vehicle, you just have to plan accordingly. Make sure that you've got time to stop. Make sure that you look ahead and see that the chargers are actually free and functional. I think I've covered most of this stuff. One of the things that we've done to try and de-risk it even more for people, we do a lot of battery diagnostics, and we've looked at lots of data around the vehicle battery degradation. So we offer a 30-day return policy and also warranties on the vehicles. For the ones that are older, where the warranty is already expired, we give a 6-month warranty. And for the new ones, we do a 3-year warranty, which is pretty awesome for a secondhand vehicle. Like, you don't normally get that. But I think we're pretty comfortable in that if there is somehow a lemon that slips through, you're covered for a replacement vehicle, which is the easiest way for us, because there's, for us, residual value in that old battery as well, that we can use that for stationary storage or switch out to sell. We've done battery replacements already, surprisingly simple. What else is there to say? We, through the bulk buys and partnerships, we create a community fund as well. So we do that to either put in whatever the community partners' prerogative is, I guess. In some cases is public charging infrastructure or solar on a building, on a community building, or whatever it may be. And the ambassador program, as it goes on, that's the thing that I just want to keep on getting people subscribed into to help. And as part of the ambassador program, we either can contract people in there or do a volunteer process if you're not able to do that much, where we give a donation to Groundswell Giving or the Climate Council. Or if you do more than 10 test drives in a month, then Chargefox are offering a nice incentive of 1,000 kilometers worth of charging or the equivalent thereof. Some of our partners that we've worked with before, Geelong Sustainability, Hepburn Wind, and Nova, they're a community energy retailer. So that's kind of cool to be getting into that space as well, where EVs and EV specific tariffs, zero emissions in Sydney North, Sea Change in Canberra, Sustainable Living Tasmania here, and the South Hobart Sustainable Community was our very first bulk buy that we ever did. And Energy Lab is a clean tech accelerator that we went through, and that really helped us figure out how to run a business. This is a very accidental business. It's great that we're doing it now, but it's not ever what any of us ever envisaged we'd be doing. If you want to get in touch with us, you're more than welcome to call me on, that's my private number, so give a shout if you want to. Please don't spam me. There's my email address, or if you're making general inquiries, then info@goodcar.co. And this is something to try out. I know you're probably really over QR codes, but here's another QR code. So it'd be great just to try it, actually. If you take your phone and scan it, it should take you directly to the special order page. So this is a special order page set up for Totally Renewable Phillip Island, and it'll tie you into the end of the other bulk buy that's happening. So more than happy to answer any questions now. Let's stop the screen share and stop.
I'm sure there's lots of questions. Thanks, Anthony.
Cool.
I see, just a comment there, I see you've got some Hyundai cars now, which you've only recently expanded from the Leaf, from the Nissans.
Yeah. So we're doing that just because we really want people to be having options. We realized like that I think I was just framing people in my own way of thinking that everybody's going to want the most affordable vehicle, but some people want new vehicles with the Australian warranties as well. So being able to offer that, but at a more affordable rate, is something that just makes sense, and eventually we'll expand it, hopefully to all vehicle providers. Tesla's a bit tricky, but there's power in community. We can get those bulk discounts as well. So
Terrific. Tim, you've got a question there, and then Michael.
Hi, Anthony. I heard you mention about novated leases. Can you let me know which company?
Yeah, so we've got Vehicle Solutions. They're out of South Australia, and Pepper Money. They're generally, depending on who your employer is and what kind of agreements they have, like down here in Tasmania, Maxia are the only providers of novated leasing, but the finance for that is split into two different parts. So there's the administration side of the lease, and then there's the actual finance that plugs into the back of it. You just have to have a look around and see which ones are the most suitable for you, because some of them have all these odd inclusions of like a fuel allowance and things like that that just aren't specific to electric vehicles, and you know, additional servicing that you don't need with an electric vehicle. So it's nice to find a provider that is not making you pay for stuff that you don't actually need. But the cool thing is with the novated leasing, as I'm sure you know, being able to have that from your pre-tax income, you can save a couple of grand a year in that process. Plus, on top of what you're already saving with the fuel and maintenance, then it's a really good proposition for narrowing that return on investment of the vehicle.
Thank you.
Michael, you got a question there.
Yeah, I have. Thanks, Mary. Anthony, so I'm mostly interested, or actually only interested really, in cars that have the bi-directional charging, which I understand the Nissan Leaf has, but not being very technical, I find it very difficult to work out whether in Victoria we can actually use that. You know, whether because you look it up and there seems to be a test going on in Canberra, and I think maybe one in Queensland or something. And they to get approval of the inverter or whatever it is. So can we actually do it, or is that the car's got the capacity, but are we allowed to in a regulatory sense?
The regulatory framework for export into the grid is not there yet. Behind the meter is possible. Like even the Canberra trial, it isn't happening yet because they're still going through their AS4777 safety certification process. For some reason, it's well, I guess with everything that there are delays with processing paperwork and getting things happening. So there's going to be a few entrances into the market. There's a lot of sunk R&D costs in getting these bidirectional chargers together and ready for Australia. So I think they're not going to be that cheap. They'll be in the order of like $8,000 to $10,000 initially. I think there's a use case for it. I mean, depending on the size of your battery, the Tesla Powerwall is the same cost or more for 10 kilowatts of power, whereas your vehicle is 40 or 60 or 100 or whatever it may be. I mean, somebody here in Hobart he's got a bidirectional charger. He uses it for his home, and he's got a 24 kilowatt hour vehicle that just sits in his garage and only does that. And he's also got 3 Teslas and a bunch of other things, but there are those awesome use cases where you have your home backup in your battery, and then you get a free car thrown in, whichever way you want to look at it. But there's use cases for it as well. Obviously, you can only use your battery when your car is at home, and you want to be able to plan for what your next day is going to be. So more often than not, you'll just be able to use it for that period that you are having that peak usage in the evening, and then switch it to charging on a low tariff, and it'll still be full in the morning. It's pretty cool.
Sorry, that sounds great. So as I understand what you just said, I can use it with the current inverters that are approved, but it's behind the meter, which I understand is meaning I can't export to the grid, so I don't get paid for it overnight, but that's fine. That'll maybe come in time, but I can still run my house on the car.
Yeah. So you'd want to get it on the right circuit, and obviously get an electrician to install it, but it's entirely doable. So the ones that we've been testing, we get a steady 7.2 kilowatt output, which is for most houses more than enough to do it. There's a 3-phase one coming into the market as well fairly soon. So depending on what your requirements are, there should be something that works.
So how do I find that out? What not what my requirements are, but the 3 phases and all that. I'm not very technical. So how do I find that out?
I guess you could look at your power bill and see what your, I don't know if you've got a smart meter. Everybody has smart meters in Victoria.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see what your actual household consumption is, and I guess you could pick a peak time and see what you're drawing. There's clunkier ways of being able to see it as well. You could get some household energy monitoring equipment, but depending on, or you could do an audit of all your appliances as well and see what they draw when they're all on. That's probably more than necessary.
Yeah, no, sorry, I wasn't trying to work out my consumption. I very low consumption, live basically by myself, so I know it'll work for me in terms of that. But just as to whether it's technically allowable, because I think phase one and phase 3, or your house is wired one way or the other, or something, isn't it?
Yeah. So single phase is probably more than enough for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and just you'd have to ensure that it was behind the meter and that you're able to island it as well.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
I'll just ask you, Anthony, about, you mentioned, because I didn't explain at the start to everybody, but we did look at the community bulk buy component of what you're offering, and we're very interested in that. But I was thinking that we were too small as a local group. But can you talk a little bit more about how we may link with another current program, and what would that process be for us?
Yeah, so through that special orders link that I shared with you, it'll all be tagged with Totally Renewable Phillip Island, and we'll tie you into the end of the Geelong bulk buy and another one that's coming up.
Okay.
It's just the resources to the on-ground event and the test drives.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of EVs in Geelong very soon, and they're setting up a test drive group of 10 or so people that are really enthusiastic. So if you do want to do a test drive of those vehicles, otherwise just jump in any Nissan Leaf anywhere or Hyundai. That's the thing, is that the cars are pretty standard. So if you've seen that it fits, it's got enough room for you, it's easy to get in and out of, then it should be fine. The other consideration is for charging, making sure that you have off-street parking so that you can plug it in. That's one of the unfortunate things about electric vehicles, is it's a little bit harder to have one if you live in an apartment block, unless there is charging in your parking area.
So can you also talk a little bit about the time frame for buying cars? I know we did talk about there is a big demand at the moment, and where you see that, if people order a car, what's the approximate time you think they would take to get it?
Yeah, there's massive bottlenecks in the supply chain everywhere. So even ordering an MG or a Hyundai now, you're looking at 6 months to get the vehicle here. That's this perfect storm of COVID and other processes that are happening. New vehicles are delayed. The imports are also delayed. So you'd be waiting about 5 to 6 months reasonably. Generally, it takes 3 months. And it could still take that time, but it's a thing that it's good to have measured expectations of it. We let you know every single part of the way as it goes through. There's some bits in the supply chain where it's a federal department, and that's kind of a black box. Like, we know that it's gone there. We know that the paperwork is with them, but when they approve it is when they approve it. And it's like poking a hornet's nest or wasp nest. You don't want to don't want to annoy them, otherwise it could take even longer for it to come through. But we do try and communicate as much as possible so that you know where your vehicle is. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Anthony, and sorry to interrupt. I was driving my electric vehicle, so I could hear you talking in the background.
What kind of car are you driving?
I've got a Hyundai Kona, actually, which
Awesome.
was a bit of an impulse buy, and I think I lucked out with I was able to purchase it through my business. So I was very lucky because, you know, as a single mum on low income, I wouldn't have qualified any other way.
Yeah.
But Anthony, I was just wondering, in terms of the price ranges of the cars that you bring in, what should we be budgeting for, I guess, if we want to buy an electric?
Are you getting a second car? You're
Well,
getting another electric car?
There's always room for more. I've got to run the house off something.
So the indicative pricing for the 24 kilowatt hour cars, they're the teens to low 20s. So, you know, the cheapest car that we've had is $15,000. We're really stringent about the vehicles that we actually import. So we only take a thin band of the vehicles available over there based on the battery state of health and the aesthetic and mechanical condition. So that way our warranty is okay. For the 30 kilowatt hour vehicles, they're mid-30s to medium, close to the 40s. For the 40 kilowatt hour vehicles, they're in the mid. Let me pull out the latest pricing that we have from our website. Sorry, the 30s are in the high to low 30s for the 30 kilowatt hour vehicles, and the 40s are in the high 30s to low 40s. The 62 kilowatt hour vehicles are in the high 40s to the low 50s. The vans, so all of this pricing is on that special order page if you go into it. It's a lot easier to see that.
Mm-hmm.
The vans, the 24 kilowatt hour vans, which they start around $26,000. And I guess the main thing to consider is that when you look at the pricing on that special order page, it has the maximum price on there. The reason why it has that is because that's the threshold of where we won't bid beyond. But to make sure that we can actually get your car, we potentially go up to there, but more often than not, it's quite a way under that. You get to see that vehicle purchase history, and we refund whatever is the difference in between that. So that's the price is cheaper than what you see on there, but we have to have the maximum price just so that it is efficient. Otherwise, you know, they're variable pricing. It depends on currency fluctuations. It depends on demand. We've seen a big uptick in demand as well because New Zealand has some phenomenal policies for electric vehicles that I really hope we follow suit with. But all these complexities make it quite variable.
Mm-hmm. Just another question while other people are thinking. What about the insurance? What's the story about insurance of electric vehicles that your experience?
So most insurers will cover them. For some of the imports, we found that it really depends on the insurer. We've been using Amy, Yui, Shannon's, NRMA. There's quite a few. I don't know about RACV. I'm not from Victoria, but I imagine that there's ample options there as well. It's not, the insurance is based on the value of the vehicle. So
yeah, okay. So it's not because at one stage it was discussed that because there were so few vehicles that or that could have been just a Tesla problem. That in fact the insurance was going to be extremely high because they couldn't find, there just weren't a lot of people a lot of service
The
opportunities.
good thing about the Nissan Leafs is that they've all been domestically sold, and so you can get parts from Nissan dealerships as well, Nissan service centres.
Terrific.
You don't get warranty, but that's income for them to service your vehicle.
Michael, you got a follow-up question?
Yeah, I have. Thanks. I was thinking about the size of the batteries that you were talking about. So I was thinking of getting a bigger battery, not because I really need it for the range, but because it would be better as a household battery. But what you said earlier about behind the meter and in front of the meter, do you expect that soon, what's your expectation about regulatory approval to allow it to go in front of the meter or whatever you call it, where you can actually export back to the grid? Would you expect that to be happening in the next year or two, or is it sort of?
I think it's the thing that will fall in line with the safety approvals of those bidirectional chargers. So they'll be considered the same as a stationary home battery. There really shouldn't be a great difference between them at all. So,
so that implies sooner rather than later.
Sooner as soon as that. So that there'll be a lot of learnings from that trial, but I don't see why it would take longer. It's a battery. Batteries in homes are, quite easy to connect.
Thanks.
Yes, Bob, you got a question? Bob, you're on mute, I think.
Okay, sorry, Anthony. Just a question. Look, we're in the market for an electric vehicle. We have excess power from solar. Mm-hmm. We're thinking about changing our gas over to electricity completely. We've been investigating a battery to go onto the solar. That's not working out because it's, well, on the quotes I've got at the moment, far too expensive. But we are looking at an electric vehicle. I've made quite a few inquiries. The cheapest new one is an MG, followed by Hyundai, Kona, and Ioniq. I believe there's no Ioniqs available. So are you saying that if we were in the market for an electric vehicle, we can do better through the Good Car Company than through a dealer?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I shall stay in touch. Okay. If Zoe hasn't traded her car in by then.
Yeah.
Well,
Zoe and I have got a little thing going between us.
So we work through the dealership for delivery as well. So that the vehicle is delivered and serviced through the local dealer. We just get that the head company passes on that fleet discount through to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be in touch.
Cool.
Yes, Tim.
I think, sorry to interrupt you again. Oh,
Tim, we're just going to
let Tim go.
Yeah, all right, Tim, and then Zoe.
Okay, I'll go. So looking at I clicked on the barcode, and if I place order on this, what does that do?
The entire process. So there'll be a deposit that goes down, and that's a refundable deposit. Then it'll take you through. There is another bit down the very bottom, just to save everybody. There's a special order process explained as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably easier than walking everybody through that entire process, because there are quite a few steps that happen in there. Trying to automate and make it simpler, but yeah.
So I should do the special order process button first?
Yep.
read through that?
Yeah, read through the special letter process. It should be well documented.
Okay.
Give a shout if you've got any questions at all.
Thank
And
you.
then, yeah, when you're comfortable with that, then the process is your initial deposit, the milestone payment, which is pretty large. It's the cost of the vehicle in Japan. And then, that's the phenomenal thing. Like, the vehicles are pretty cheap in Japan. Then we've got all the customs and the shipping and the compliance and these other processes just add on so much more. We've been able to negotiate quite a fair bit of saving through that entire process that we pass on. But yeah, it's just fascinating to see the difference between vehicles in Australia and other territories in the world. There's a great space for improvement there. We're getting rid of some of these impediments to electric vehicle uptake. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyhow, yeah, no worries.
Zoe, do you want to make a comment? And then Naomi's got a question.
Yeah, well, I should probably stop talking. I'll monopolise these things. But I guess what hit home to me, well, two things. Driving the Kona, it's the first car I've ever had heated seats and a heated steering wheel, which was phenomenal. Every boy under the age of 12 on a bicycle that I pass actually uses expletives. They're so excited to see an electric car. But also, I think the thing that blew me off my seat was someone kind of as a sideline said to me, you realise the battery size of your car is more powerful than a Tesla Powerwall. And I just kind of went, what? So just, I think there's so much potential in that idea of actually using batteries to store and hold our solar that are actually our cars and our mode of sort of longer range transport rather than just bikes or feet as well. So I think it's quite phenomenal if you look at it that way.
Yeah, and it is the most efficient use of your solar, realistically. Like the cost, the equivalent cost of liquid fuel transport compared to the cost of driving on your solar, it's the best way, especially if you've lost your feed-in tariff or your premium feed-in tariff, then you can really maximize the potential of your solar by just putting it into your car.
Sure. Naomi, do you want to have a question?
Yeah, I just I salary sacrifice my car at the moment, so it's I've got another 3 years to go on that, and I just wondered if you'd approached any of the salary sacrificing companies like Smart Lease is the one I'm with, to see, like, they often have people, you know, who are looking for cars.
We can totally slot in with other providers of novated leasing salary sacrifice. The main thing is the vehicles have to be landed here and registered. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's that using of our resources to carry that vehicle and finance it the whole way across. So in terms of the bulk buy, it changes the proposition a little bit. It means we can't get more electric vehicles into here, but it's not out of the question at all. It's just that additional cost to finance also goes onto that cost of the vehicle, whereas if you do it, then yeah,
if you buy it outright.
Yeah. But
okay,
you know, it's not that much the difference, but it's short answer is yes, we can do it. We can work with other novated leasing salary sacrifice providers.
Okay,
thanks.
Stefan, you got a question there?
Yeah, for sure. Anthony, I know you going from North Hobart to Sandy Bay is not a real distance, but for some of us, from Phillip Island to Melbourne, it's 130 k's. So I'd want to make sure, I don't get stuck halfway. And if I do have to stop, how long am I going to expect to be waiting on the side of the road to charge my vehicle? That's
a really good question. So it depends on the vehicle. So the Nissan Leafs, they can only go up to 50 kilowatts of charge capacity. One of the nuances with the electric cars is that if you're driving a long distance and the battery gets hotter, if you're driving a long distance fast, then that charge rate is also metered off. So normally it take half an hour to go from 0 to full. But one thing that I found is that when I'm driving really fast to get to somewhere, I end up taking longer because I have to spend longer charging. So you're better off to drive slower, keep your car cool, plug it in, it'll charge faster, and then keep on going. Or, you know, the other alternative is if you're doing it all the time, then you're probably better off to get a bigger battery.
We're going to have to.
We always try and encourage. We always just try and encourage people to go for the smaller batteries because it's a lesser environmental footprint. If you don't need it, then why spend the extra money and why have all that extra embodied energy there? But you know that there are much bigger batteries out there.
Yeah.
You can provide it.
What about mechanics? You're putting your mechanic out of business. Do you have any servicing requirements at all?
Yeah, of course. There's the general safety. You don't use your brakes all that often because you've got the regenerative braking. So you've got much longer life span of that, but your suspension and your wheels, obviously you want to get them checked for safety. Your windscreen wipers, it's pretty minimal. Like you'd expect to spend about $150 a year on an annual service. And that's about it. The next big thing that you might have is way down the track when that vehicle, the battery degrades, and it's going to degrade like every battery does. When it gets down below that point of your usable range, then you know your options are put in a new battery or sell it on to somebody else who that suits. Yeah, but
Can
still,
I add
like
another
all the modeling. Yeah,
I was
Yep.
just going to add another anecdote because I have commuted very much to Melbourne and back from Phillip Island. In fact, I've done 47,000 kilometres in the last 15 months.
yeah, well,
And I've got the Kona Highlander, which I have actually seen it pop up over 500 kilometre range, but that's quite rare. It can easily do sort of 420 to 480. But there are great things like the PlugShare app that will give you locations of charges along the route. So it's a slightly different mentality to petrol stations in knowing where they are. But for instance, I know Monash Uni's got a free charger. I know in Brunswick and they're all renewable energy, the council charges and the university charges, you know. And so I know I can stop off and top up for 10, 15 minutes if I need to get back to sort of 80% charge, just so I don't have to worry.
yeah.
So I'm not, that idea of journeying to and from Melbourne, especially when you get a free charge out of it, that's renewable energy, doesn't faze me at all.
Michael,
Are they?
yes, sorry, you go, Anthony, and then Michael might have a comment.
I'm just wondering, in your experience, have you ever had to wait excessively long periods, or is there enough around there that you're comfortable?
When I got it, well, it was during COVID as well, so there weren't many people out, so there was never any demand. But lately, I think, I don't know how many more cars are on the road that are electric, but I've started to find occasionally some of the charge stations might be occupied. However, if you do use an app like PlugShare, you actually log in. So you can look up and see if anyone's at the charging point. I had another situation. There's a fast charger down at Cape Patterson, which I actually love that excuse to go down there. But I arrived in a storm once and it knocked out my phone reception, which meant I couldn't activate the charging process. There's just, I think you've got to try a few things to find out what works and what doesn't. But there's no way I'd ever go back to a petrol car. It just does not make sense now.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things is that we are in that early phase, but what we have now compared to even a year ago, there's so much more infrastructure out there. And so in a couple of years, I think it's going to be really, really easy to travel around in an electric car, which is nice to know. Hopefully that'll get a lot more people going electric.
Michael?
Yeah, g'day. So I've got 3 questions actually. If you do the bidirectional thing, is it possible to use your car to go off grid altogether? So that's the first question. I'll just do my 3. The second question is is it only the Nissan Leaf that can do the bidirectional? And the third question is, are the charging mechanisms, adapters or whatever you use, can you charge any car on any charger, I guess is what I'm asking.
Okay, so you might have to remind me all of them as we go along. At the moment, it is only the Nissan Leaf that can do, oh no, actually it's not, it's Mitsubishi MIEV also. It's the CHAdeMO is the only charge protocol that works for the bidirectionality at the moment, but they are working on CCS too. Can you go off grid? It depends on how your home is wired. It's like having solar. If you've got your house on a different meter, when the power cuts out, your solar's still not going to be providing for your home. So if you have the right use case, then you could conceivably go completely off grid with your vehicle. You just want to make sure that you're able to charge it depending on how much you need to drive the next day. And the third question was?
Are the chargers all the same? Can any car charge at any charge station?
They're not, stupidly. Yeah, so there is no universality to them yet. You've got the Type 1 charger, which all the vehicles from Japan are, or J1772. And then you've got the Type 2 charger, or Menikeys, which most of the European models are. So most chargers, if to bring your own cable, then you can have an adapter cable and utilize them. Pretty much all the fast chargers have both a CCS and CHAdeMO cable provided. Using those apps, PlugShare or a better route planner, you can filter out the vehicles which have your particular charge type. So that's the best way to plan your trips.
Thanks. You mentioned an adapter. Did I understand that even if it's the wrong type, you can have an adapter with you that will allow you to charge at the wrong sort of station, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, not all of them. So that's the other thing as well. If it is a hardwired Type 2 cable, then those adapters all the ones that I've tried don't work. I've seen some forums where people have said they've bought something from Alibaba in China and it's worked. But generally no, because there's a little pin that they make a little bit shorter than what the adapter is and they don't make contact. But if it is a bring your own cable situation, then you'll have a Type 2 to Type 1 adapter cable. And most of the slower chargers, AC chargers that you find out in public areas are that, because it's the part that you get the most maintenance on are those actual charging cables. So people drop the heads, they crack. It's a lot easier for those charge providers to just have something where you bring your own cable.
Terrific, thank you.
Any other questions?
Zoe, what's been your lived experience being in that area for charging?
I want to say thanks, guys. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Mary. I've got to go.
All right.
Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you, Stefan. Thanks very much. Thank you. So, Zoe, tell us about your experience living with, going to Melbourne a lot, and
and using the AC charges, if that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have got myself in trouble because I've pushed the limits. I'm certainly not risk averse either. So I certainly have tested the car to the full range. But there's actually no issue around here at all. There's a free charge station that council's put in at the transit centre in Cowes. So when I go and pick up my daughter, I've started actually parking there, plugging it in, walking a block to the school, picking her up, walking back, getting a smidgen of exercise, and then I've got an extra hour of charging off renewable energy that's free. And I know through speaking with council that they're actually putting in heaps of infrastructure at the moment as part of a touring route sort of along the coast. They're looking at, I think, Wonthaggi and potentially Inverloch as well. But it's going to come. Also, I guess, as coordinator of Totally Renewable Phillip Island, I write a lot of grant applications and see a lot of them come across my desk. And a lot of them are grants to expand charging infrastructure. So I know probably we won't recognise the territory in the next year because there'll just be so many, it's not even a question of what we're worried about. Yeah.
Michael? Michael, do you want to?
Sorry, yes, I do. Sorry for hogging the questions, but just as something that Zoe just said about changes that are coming, is it changes that are coming will make a purchase now redundant or inefficient, or is there something around the corner that's going to change the whole situation? I guess.
There's always going to be
a good time to get in or a bad time.
I think it's. I never hear anybody say they wish they'd waited longer to get an electric vehicle. It's there's always going to be something better, and you can hold out for as long as you want. But looking at, even if you're replacing an internal combustion vehicle with a new electric vehicle, that lifetime emissions are going to be much lesser in an electric vehicle. So I think from that perspective, it's worth taking action now. But don't know, there's some funny things going on with cars in Australia at the moment. So like secondhand Teslas have appreciated in price, and what we're seeing as well from the last 3 years of doing the Nissan Leafs, they haven't really moved that much in price. I don't think Australia is going to have the policies in place that are going to encourage a lot of manufacturers to bring electric vehicles to the country, because they get their credits from, well, essentially that they offset the penalties they get for selling internal combustion vehicles into Europe, so they offset them with electric vehicles. It's silly for the manufacturers to consider selling it to another territory where the demand isn't as high, and they also don't get those credits. So we're just not going to be prioritized, and I don't think that it's going to be quite a few years until we actually see proper uptake of electric vehicles here, which is why we're doing the business as well. Like, we're just trying to address market and policy failure. So, it's whether now's the time or not. I think Zoe would be really good to answer that one.
Does anyone want to hear my voice anymore?
Yeah, tell us, Zoe. Tell us what your advice there is. I know you're very happy with it.
Yeah, look, it's in terms of, is it ever going to be outdated, which I think was Michael's question. I was part of the community vision panel for the council a few months back, and there were 40 of us who sort of tried to predict the future needs of the coast. And a presentation we were given was sort of thinking at 2040 and, automated cars. So maybe people don't own their own cars. Maybe they're, driverless cars that can be plugged in and charged and moved around like battery infrastructure for the grid. Or maybe there's going to be a giant electric monorail that links us straight to Melbourne. But who knows? In my other gig, I'm an architect, and the question we get designing homes is, everyone says, I want to future-proof the home. So then we go to the expense of laying a whole lot of expensive cables that are the best that we know at the time, but within 6 months, they're already old news, they're outdated. So to some degree, I don't think future-proofing or trying to get something that's always going to work no matter what is the key consideration. I think it's really looking at the comparison between a petrol car or internal combustion engine car and the hugely negative impact it has both in fossil fuels and where to start. And I'm not condemning anyone, because my last car was a petrol car, but having that opportunity that I thought would never be reachable to have an electric car, it's just something every day I'm very proud, and I certainly don't have that sense of being as hypocritical with my values and my ethos and my choice of car. So I think, I mean, the other thing we've talked about a little bit is that idea that batteries being able to be interchanged or swapped over, and a secondhand battery market, or using batteries for other purposes. So I think it's really important that when we think of electric vehicles, we think of things like circular economy and reuse and recycle as well, and second life of things. So there's just so much richness there, and so much potential to incorporate with energy networks and house and building. Imagine if your employer generated all your power and you charged up and brought it home. I mean, who knows what will happen, but it's all pretty exciting. And I certainly wouldn't hesitate to take that future in hand now with what we have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quite inspiring. Yeah. Yeah. Now, Anthony, you know, with you said, where did you put the information you had for people, and the you didn't put in the chat room or anything? Where have you want to put that up again so everybody has access to that?
Yeah, let me just put it in there. It is just Good Car Co. Where's the chat room? www.goodcar.co.
Yeah.
/special orders.
Okay. Terrific. And then we've got a question from Bernie.
Hi, yeah. Where are we up to with DC to DC? So for quite a while, there's been AC chargers on board in vehicles and so on, but they're about to disappear, aren't they? So yeah, how close are we?
I don't know the answer to that one.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, there's that requires a much larger shift. I guess there's a lot of
Is Zoom still happening?
the journey of DC appliances and shifting the whole house into DC.
Well, no, not necessarily, but just in the link from the house or the charging point out on the highway into the vehicle, and then from the vehicle back to the house again. And so DC into an inverter in the house that is then compatible with the grid.
I see what you mean. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think it's coming. So having just the bulk and weight of all that AC junk in a car and the expense, it can be made superfluous, can't it?
Yeah, it can be made superfluous. Hold on, I just got to put in that special orders link. It's actually not working properly. Special order without an S, sorry, in the chat.
Oh, order. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No S.
Special order.
Anthony, if we use that, I can't look at it at the moment because I'm on a phone. But if we use that, we can actually order now. Is that right? As part of the Geelong bulk buy.
You can. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm in.
So just following up on that, Anthony, you know, one of the things you said about, and I know that with all the bulk buys, one of the key things has been people trialing, or you have as part of your bulk buy, you usually have a sort of a show and tell or a come and try an EV. So I think Geelong have finished all their I think they've finished all their promotion stuff. Have you got any thoughts about how we could do something like that in Bass Coast?
Well, so if you want to go to Geelong as those vehicles arrive, there's a very enthusiastic group who are going to be doing test drives, and we'll set up that booking scheduling process for them. If you want to try a Hyundai, I know somebody in this group who's got one that might be able to offer some test drives. As far as
long as you're double vaxxed.
As long as you double vaxxed, yeah. It seems like a sensible group. The Nissan Leafs are just any Nissan Leaf. Go down to a Nissan dealership and try one of them, and then get a more affordable Nissan Leaf, or get one of them as well. I'm pretty agnostic as to where you get an electric car. It's just great to see more of them out there.
Terrific. All right. Look, we're sort of getting towards the end now. Has anybody got any more questions before? Because we're just about finished, I think. Any other questions? I think you've given us the link.
Mary, a very
Yes.
quick question. Sorry to go
Michael,
again.
yes, you
But
go.
the timeline you mentioned could be about 6 months through the Good Car Company. If one were
Yep.
to buy a new Leaf, are they? Do you know what their timeline is? I know the MGs are forever.
Yep, about 6 months. Just the global
about the
supply
same.
chain issue. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we can also get a deal with MG as well. It's just not that good. And whilst I think MG they have good cars, they have kind of questionable human rights practices in some of their parts of the supply chain. So just, yeah.
Great.
That question is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, thank you. I think we'll wrap it up there, and if anybody's got any other questions, they can get back to you, Anthony. I'm sure you've made that offer. So thanks everybody. Apologies for the delay to start with, but thanks for joining us, everybody. And this has been recorded. So if you know of anybody who's interested, we'll have that up on the TRPI webpage or the YouTube channel some stage, and so you just refer people to that. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll say good night now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Anthony.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mary.
Mary.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
No, thank you all for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Tim, oh, I was just going to thank Tim. Thanks very much, Tim. Thanks for your help there. It was a bit of a rocky start there. I'm not sure why, Rob, I don't know why you couldn't get in, but thanks for joining us. And Linda's joined as well. So, yeah, so thanks.
Yeah,
It was
no worries at all.
really interesting, and it was a terrific, a lot of questions. People got a lot of questions, but that I think that's really progressed us for us, progressed the story for us. So thanks very much.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to help out again as well if you want to have another session for just general questions.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to travel into Victoria before too long. So,
yeah.
But I think in next year as well, we'll also be running something with Banyule City Council and that green belt. So if people miss out on this round, we'll still only have that special order process open for a short period. I probably should have told people that as well.
Oh yeah.
Just because from an administrative side of things, like we got limited resources, so we can only do it for a short period of time. But then next year we'll be doing it with.
So what's the timeline, do you think, on this one with the special order? Because I was a bit surprised because I thought Geelong had sort of all wrapped up, but yeah. So what are you thinking in the next couple of weeks or a month or?
Yeah, so that's definitely. It's a lot easier. So we are just opening up a Tassie bulk buy as well. That happens this Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's going to be in the south, and then in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be doing it up in the north. And so this ordering process as well would go through
same time.
That general process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be good for people to know. We might. I don't know. We might even email people, Tim, and tell the people who've. Might talk to you about that tomorrow or something. Talk to the people who have joined the session, and just give them that little bit extra information if they want to.
Yeah, cool. Sorry, I should have.
Well, if they've decided and they wait, they wait too long, and then that'll be disappointing for them. So, okay. Well, thanks, Anthony. Oh, thanks very much for your time. Thank you, Tim.
You're very welcome.
Again, see ya. We'll have to wait.
Bye bye.
Cheers. See ya. Bye.
Ta-da.